Deputy Fiona Loughlin.
And thank you for being here, Minister, and for your time. And the question that I wish to raise, and it's an incredibly important one for my constituents in the area of Kildare and in Kilberry and indeed all over Athy, and that's in relation to the Bordnamona plant. And both in 1933, when the whole idea of harvesting of peat and turf came into being, and then in 1946, when Bordnamona started. Bordnamona has, I know that you'll acknowledge, the history of being the sole main employer in very large tracts of land in Ireland, particularly around the Midland counties and most particularly in my own county of Kildare, and has provided a vital economic lifeline in Athy, indeed in Ballydermot and in Timahoe and Kildare and other areas. But my particular question is in relation to Kilberry, which actually started in 1947, just a year after Bordnamona was established, and has had a vibrant employment, industry and presence in the area. At this point in time, there are 53 full-time and 6 seasonal employees in the plant. And Bordnamona decided to purchase a horticultural peat plant called White Moss in the north of England, which was signed off over Christmas. And it is certainly my belief that this poses a significant threat to the future of the Kilberry plant. I think it's hugely important that we need to protect our indigenous industry, especially in regions where employment levels are already low. And I think there would be a huge impact on employment in the Kilberry and Athy area if anything was to happen. Not alone that, but the workers themselves have received no pay rise since 2008 and were due to get a 6% raise, and there is absolutely no sign of that. And you have to understand that this is a very, very worrying time for the employees. The prospect of future rationalisation or indeed any type of consolidation has struck fear in the hearts and minds of the employees and their families. And while Bordnamona is a semi-state organisation, I absolutely believe that the Government has an absolute responsibility to oversee the policies of Bordnamona and how they impact on employment. There has been no investment in Kilberry over the last long number of years, and I put it to you, Minister, that the loss of any jobs in South Kildare, where employment is already a huge issue, would have a severe impact on the area. So I really want an assurance from you in relation to the future of the plant in Kilberry, an assurance that no jobs will be lost. And I also would like to ask you about any conversations that happened before. Did you seek any assurances from Bordnamona in relation to the acquisition of this plant in England and in relation to the possibility of any negative impact that it would have on Kilberry or any other such plants? Because surely in the light of everything that's happening and in the light of Brexit as well too, we have a duty to preserve jobs that we have and not be buying plants elsewhere and providing employment in other countries that quite soon will not even be members of the EU. Thank you, Minister.
Thanks, Deputy McLaughlin, and thanks for raising this specific issue, which is an important issue, and I know it's something that you've raised privately with me as well. As you are aware, Bordnamona is facing significant business challenges in the context of the deregulation of the electricity market and increasingly competitive and challenging environments across all of the business areas, not least in its horticulture business. The framework for addressing the challenges facing Bordnamona in the most recent 5-year copper plan and the company's wider sustainability plan to move away from peat production for energy use. It should be noted that the company intends to cease the harvesting of energy peat by 2030. The harvesting of peat for horticultural purposes is expected to continue after that point. In order to secure the most important market for its horticultural product range, Bordnamona recently acquired White Moss Horticulture Limited, based in Kilberry near Liverpool. The integration of White Moss into the horticulture division of Bordnamona has implications for both the Bordnamona peat moss plants at Kilberry, County Kildare, and Coonanemona plant in County Laois. The rationale for this particular acquisition is to secure the UK export market, which accounts for the majority of the company's horticultural sales. This, in turn, is intended to support the long-term sustainability of Irish jobs in the horticulture and feedstock divisions of Borden. Additionally, the acquisition helps to sustain the horticulture business into the future by delivering security of non-peat feedstock supply, green waste, which is unavailable in sufficient quantities and geographic concentration in Ireland, and also a competitive supply chain model that drives value in operations and logistics. This has become increasingly relevant with constrained currency exchange margins in the immediate aftermath of the British vote to exit the European Union and the possibility of trade tariffs in the longer term. With regard to the specific matter raised by Deputy O'Loughlin, that is the future of the specific plant at Kilberry. While this is a matter of concern to me, I should point out that this is an operational matter for the company and one in which I, as Minister, have no direct role or function. Nonetheless, Borden have informed me that the majority of jobs based in Kilberry will be secure following the integration of the White Moss acquisition. I consented to the acquisition of White Moss Horticulture Limited with the consent of the Minister for Public Expenditure and Reform, and following thorough analysis by Borden in the first instance, New Era as the ministerial, commercial and financial advisers, and my own department officials. My consent to the acquisition was conditional, however, on assurance provided to me by the management team at Borden that staff would be fully engaged during the acquisition integration process, and where necessary, redeployments would be pursued, and that any potential redundancies would be minimised and on a voluntary rather than compulsory basis insofar as is possible. So, just to clarify, Deputy, that the issue here at hand was how do we maintain the long-term sustainability of the horticulture business and secure as many jobs as possible here in Ireland. And yes, it was a very difficult choice, but let me say that it is not government policy to invest in operations outside of this country unless there is a clear economic dividend within this state. And a lot of thought and consideration went into this proposal by New Era before it came to me. I discussed this thoroughly and considered it thoroughly before I made any decision on it, and it was the sole intention to secure as many jobs as possible in Kilberry and in the horticulture operation as a whole.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I do accept that there is a current review, which is very important, and I accept the bona fides of the Minister in relation to sustaining Irish jobs. However, you say, Minister, that it is a matter of concern for you, and I have to say it's a huge matter of concern for me, and particularly listening to your response. You say that it is the responsibility of Borden as opposed to yourself as Minister. But again, I say to you that the Government absolutely has a responsibility to oversee the policies of Borden and how they impact on the employment. And it does concern me also. You know, you give the assurance that there would be full engagement with the employees and that, where necessary, redeployment and hopefully to have voluntary redundancies. Well, you know, I would think for those employees that may be listening in or may get to hear of this debate afterwards, that certainly wouldn't give any confidence to them in the plant. Commitments were made before in relation to their to investing more money into the plant and also in relation to their pay rise. And not alone have they not got any of that, but they see investment going out of the country into another plant, and I would absolutely plead with you to ensure that not one job is lost in relation to this, and to go back to Borden and to ask them to look again at the model that they have there in Kilberry and to look at the possibility of reinvesting there. I've met with members of the workforce who are afraid of their lives, I have to say, to speak out, and I think that's wrong as well too. They would only meet in relation to their meetings being absolutely confidential and to their names not being used, and I absolutely respect that. But I think it's wrong that there is a situation there, and an environment has been fostered where they are afraid to ask questions of management about the future of the plant there, and they're afraid to have their names mentioned. And that's absolutely wrong. So again, Minister, I say to you, I plead with you on behalf of all of those workers, over 60 workers, that you would go back and try to renegotiate with Bord na Móna.
Thanks, Deputy Lachlan, for the questions. Just to make it quite clear here, I could have kicked this can down the road and not made the decision and said to Bord na Móna not to invest in the UK operation. And within 12 months or 18 months, you will be standing up here and your colleagues saying that, why didn't I take action to try and save the Kilberry operation and the horticulture operation? And I would be criticised here for not supporting Bord na Móna when they were putting a proposal in place that would retain as many Irish jobs as is possible. And my priority in relation to this is to retain as many Irish jobs as is possible. It is not government policy to invest in operations outside of this jurisdiction unless there is a clear economic and employment dividend within this state. And it's not my job as Minister to allow investments like that to take place within the semi-state companies that are under my control. Can I say to you that New Era, on behalf of me as Minister and Minister Paschal Donoghue, looked thoroughly at this proposal and scrutinised it, as they do with any proposal, particularly where there is a proposal to carry out investment outside of this jurisdiction. And the best way to retain the maximum number of jobs possible was to take the approach that is being taken by the company. I'm disappointed to hear the comment that you've made regarding employees fearing putting legitimate questions forward. That should not be the case, and I'm quite happy to facilitate a meeting between Bord na Móna management and the deputies from the constituency, so they can relay those questions clearly to Bord na Móna and get clear answers to it. Can I make one final point? I think it's an important point, and that is, we don't have the availability of green waste here. As you know, it's a condition now of selling these products in the UK. There has to be a certain percentage of green waste. And part of the problem is that the public out there, when they're using their brown bins, are contaminating them. A substantial amount of our brown and green bins in this country are being contaminated. And this has an impact in relation to employment, not just in this operation, but other potential operations across the country as well.